Hi, I am Leslie,
And I'm Stephanie.
and we're here today to talk about your power finger.
Yeah.
And you actually have two power fingers, one on each hand, of course. But before we get started, we want to tell you a little bit about who we are. We are the founders of the Hand Readers Guild. And we go live most Sunday mornings on our YouTube channel, Hand Readers Guild. We have a Facebook group called the Hand Readers Guild Forum, which you can join and learn all about reading hands and fingerprints and anything else about hand analysis. You can ask us questions. And we have a Facebook page which you can like, and the links to all of those are going to be below this video. So we would love it if you would join our group or subscribe to our channel. And if you like what you're hearing here, we have lots and lots of other videos already up on YouTube, and you can learn all about hand reading. And then before we get started, we're going to do one more thing. I'm going to let Stephanie do our disclaimer because you're so good at it.
All right. I'm getting practice. Our disclaimer is this is live. We don't do any editing. And so we're doing this from our house. We have dogs that like to lick and bite and talk and bark and
ring bells.
ring bells and just be obnoxious. And there's some other people in my house. So we are live and we just roll with the punches.
We just roll with it. So we hope you'll roll with it with us. We usually laugh when it happens. We leave it in the video so that you can enjoy us as authentically as we show up.
Exactly.
So with that said, let's add our slideshow for this week. Your power finger. And I'm going to admit that is my left hand right there on that slide. And I'm going to show it again later and we'll talk about it. So your power finger is your index finger.
It's number one.
Right. It's known as the index finger. We often call it the pointer finger. That's how I think a lot of people refer to it. In hand reader land, it's known as Jupiter. Jupiter, the planet, is the largest planet. Jupiter in mythology was the head god of the Romans. In Greek mythology, his counterpart was Zeus, which most people are more familiar with. And I think Zeus may show up in a lot of games and that land, which I don't belong to, but he was the big cheese. So the power finger is associated with leadership. It's associated with ambition. It's associated with what's in it for me. And when we talk about that finger in terms of hand gestures and how we use our hands, you often when you're a kid, you play bang, 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 right, with your fingers as a gun. So the thumb has a lot to do with results. But your trigger, if you were going to pull a trigger on something, you use your index finger. So we talk about that in terms of taking action on your goals. Goals are also associated with the index finger. Philosophy, big ideas. Although the mind. Well, let's not get into that. We'll just talk about the fact as this is what you need. You need a solid finger in order to take action on the goals and ambitions that you have. Think of it in terms of the ambition. So, favorite gestures of people in leadership positions: holding their finger up when they're speaking, pointing their finger at you like this. Think about people who are telling you what to do. They point their finger at you. Mm-hmm. Or think about your teachers when you were young and that you did something they didn't like. They might wag their finger at you, or your mother, right? Have you ever had somebody wag their finger at you, Stephanie?
I'm guilty of that already. I am a mother, and I.
So I'm gonna show you somebody who has a really great example of using that finger in their leadership role. This is Fidel Castro, and when I saw this image and that finger, oh my gosh, that is one of the longest fingers. It's what did you say when I showed it to you? You said it looked like a missile.
It's a missile, not a gun. That's it's not like shoot yourself. That's like pull the trigger and a missile.
It's so long. it's
It
just
is.
so long. It just stands out. It's almost like it doesn't even belong on his hand. It's
I
just a wild looking finger. So we're going to come back to that idea of leadership and leaders and their fingers. But for now, let's just talk about what you need to know about the Jupiter finger, the index finger, the power finger. So when we measure fingers on the hands, there are averages in terms of hand shapes. And this is an important concept in hand reading is you start with the average and then you go from there. So
right.
the average finger length, your middle finger is mine's not a good example. But on the average finger, mine's not average. Um, the
Is
middle
average.
finger is your longest finger, and we call each of those sections of your fingers phalanges. So we're looking at the top phalange of your middle finger, both your index finger and your ring finger. The average length is about to the center of the top phalange of your middle finger. Are yours average?
I have a long Apollo,
Okay.
so
All
it's
right.
not quite average.
All right. Well, I have well, my Apollo's slightly long too, but not as long as my Jupiter's.
Like this.
Yeah, it's just my hand's not average. We can't use my hand.
My other
But,
side is longer. See?
but I do have one handprint for you that shows average. So there you go.
Yay.
So believe it or not, it actually took me longer to find an average print with average fingers than it did for me to find some of these other examples of long and short fingers.
Yeah.
So it's possible that's because I have long Jupiter finger that other long Jupiter fingered people show up in front of me for readings, but that we're not sure about that. I can't prove it. So here is a hand that shows you a good example of the average length of the fingers. So now what we're going to talk about going forward are the ones who are not average. So here we have a long Jupiter finger. And if you look at the relationship of the middle finger to the ring finger, you can see that looks like the hand I just put up before this. But if you look at that index finger, it's not quite as long, but almost as long as the middle finger. And here's the little measuring line that will show you how much of that tip of the finger goes beyond average, beyond that center measuring point that we use. So this is an example of a long finger. So long-fingered people tend to be ambitious. They want to be in charge. Now, depending on the condition of the finger, whether it's healthy and straight, and in good shape all around, they may be natural born leaders. But if there are other things going on with the finger, which we'll show some examples of later, that may not always ring true. So let's get past that. Let's show you another long Jupiter finger. Now, we mentioned earlier that when you're trying to pull the trigger on your ambitions, your thumb also comes into play. Thumb has to do with willpower and results and success. Well, this hand, what do you say about that thumb, Stephanie?
I'd say that thumb kind of gets in the way a little bit.
Yeah, the thumb looks a little bit like it's having some trouble helping the very long Jupiter finger get results. Pull the trigger, take action on the ambitions. It may actually sabotage some of those goals.
Yeah, it's like a mushroom.
It does look a little bit like a mushroom, doesn't it?
Slowly goes up and then full bloom at the end. But
yes, it does look a little bit like a mushroom.
It's going to take a moment.
Yes. So, and also it's kind of like up here like this. So if you watched our video on thumbs, which is a great video, by the way, if you're interested, you should definitely watch the one on thumbs. Having a thumb that goes out like this is much more effective in getting results than having it close to your hand. So this combination of the long Jupiter finger is not being supported by that thumb. And actually, if we go back to that last one, they had a really long thumb, but it also was kind of not the most effective thumb. Now here's my hand. I said we were going to get back to my hand. That is my left hand. And by the way, I actually have long index fingers on both hands. When I was first studying hand analysis in the 90s, my teacher looked at my index fingers and called over his co-teacher, his wife, to look, because he was like, wow, those are some of the longest ones ever. And if you notice here on my print, it also looks fatter than the rest of my fingers.
Yes.
So there is some real energy flowing in my index finger there. And I want to tell you that I never had ambition to step into leadership roles. It was not my thing at all. I was shy when I was younger. I know it's hard to believe now. People who know me now just don't believe that. But I was very shy and unassuming and wanted to hide. And yet there were those fingers, and other people somehow, whether they looked at my fingers or not, I don't know, they seemed to always see my potential and ask me to step into those roles. And it just happened to me over and over and over and over. We have a comment. So we, you know, the fingers betrayed me, whether I wanted it or not. And we, so just wanted to bring that out, that having the big long finger may not, the ambition or the stepping into the leadership and power may not show up necessarily early in life. It may not be where you think you're going, but somehow it gets recognized. There it is. So that's me. So let's look a little bit at something a little different. We have, in this example, a short Jupiter finger. This is the opposite. So there we have, to show you the measuring line to see how much lower it is than that middle of the middle finger. So what would you say about short Jupiters?
Maybe reluctant to even be in leadership roles.
Right. Right.
No, I'm not the leader. Look at that person.
Right. They are not necessarily interested in charge. In hand reader language, we sometimes talk about people with strong index finger callings as stepping up onto the throne, and people who are either not owning their power or are not interested as being possibly the power behind the throne. So that's one way we refer to it. Another way is where we just talk about them being just happy to be employees, maybe, instead of wanting to be the boss. If the finger is not in good shape, you know, if the finger's in good shape, that's perfectly fine. That's a perfectly fine role to want to be in life. Nobody says you have to step up to be a leader. But when the finger has some challenges along with the length, then we might want to look at other things that might be going on besides just not wanting to be taking on that much of a role. So in this particular hand, if you look, that middle section looks like somebody squeezed it, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So that can show a fear of failure. That's one of the things associated with that middle section, is fear of failure or fear of success, which is just the flip side of the same.
Yeah, it's just the flip side.
It's just the same thing. Now this finger also looks like it got sunken down into the hand at the base, like somebody dug around it and it just went thunk and sunk. We call that low set.
Has a little moat around it.
Yes, we call that low set. That's the technical terminology we use for that. But this is an indication of somebody who feels like they're not getting the respect they deserve. Respect is an index finger word.
It is, very much so.
So what are some other index finger words? Respect. We already mentioned power, leadership. boundaries,
hmm
ambition, um,
uh,
passion.
passion, numbness goes with
Right,
passion. If you're
right.
not
Numbness is
passionate, you're numb at some things.
right. The very, very on the two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yep, ideals.
Ideals,
Yeah.
philosophy.
hmm
Or
Um, yeah, some things. Territory.
yes, territory is a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. All right. Here's another short Jupiter finger. And I think you mentioned that this one may
Oop,
have actually had the tip cut off.
yes, it looks like something happened.
Right. And actually, I have seen that quite a bit too. I have seen other fingers that have
hmm
injury like that, but more often than not, the finger that I see that has an injury from a sharp blade is yes. Now, I used to work in food. And, when you're working in food, you're chopping, you're holding with one hand and chopping with the other. And I'm right handed primarily. I've sliced off a sliver of my left Jupiter a couple of times. We do look at injuries in the hands as having meaning. So,
Absolutely.
injuries around left Jupiter might be something around boundaries, not standing up for yourself, right? People pleasing.
hmm
That's
Not
another
not
term that shows
respecting
up,
yourself.
right? Not having self respect.
hmm
Yes. And I have seen people who've cut off I just kind of shaved off
Just
a
to
little on the
shave a
side.
little.
But I have seen people who've cut off the entire top digit.
hmm
And it definitely tells us something. And so when I see that in a hand, I will ask the person when that injury happened, and we dig into what was going on.
At that moment. Yep. That's
Yes.
exactly what I do.
Yep. Because usually it's corresponding to something else going on in the hand.
hmm
Okay. One more short Jupiter finger. That is a very short Jupiter finger. It barely comes up above the base of the uh,
Middle
center,
finger.
the phalange of the middle finger. Yes, it's
Yeah.
almost. It's like very tiny, very tiny. It's having trouble reaching up there to its ambition. And actually, this is a person. When I did the reading for this person, I remember them talking to them about what they. There were some markers in the hand that showed some possibilities for them doing more than what they were doing, and they really just weren't interested.
hmm
I remember that very clearly. They just weren't interested in doing much more than they already were, which was oh, that's okay.
It's fine. Yeah.
That's okay if that's where they are. All right. Let's look at a different variation. We've got curved Jupiter fingers. Now, this is a different kind of problem that comes up when a finger is curved. The person with the curved finger, that's often challenges around their own success, trouble setting goals, trouble, that's definitely not like it's not like you have a straight path to get from where you think you want to go to where you're to getting to where you want to
hmm
be from where you are now.
Authority issues.
Authority, right? Authority issues. What else would you say about the curved Jupiter finger?
Um, Maybe with the authority figure issue, like not being told, not micromanaging or being micromanaged,
Yes,
but also not taking full management responsibilities.
right.
So don't you tell me what to do, but I'm not going to do that anyway.
Right, right, right. Now, this hand is pretty interesting because that finger, despite being so curved,
hmm
it's the only one that's truly solid at the base.
Yeah.
The other fingers, the middle and the ring finger, look like they're kind of disappearing. And the thumb is, as we mentioned earlier, boy,
Out
that
there.
yeah, it's out there. So this person is trying to control, but there's some issues with their power finger
hmm
that
Yeah.
and I happen to know this person got involved in a lot of power struggles in their family, a lot. So
Yeah.
So, and those constant power struggles can actually take a toll. I mean,
Mhm.
maybe that's what caused that curve, right?
Yeah.
Because trying too hard
Always
and
having to be right,
yeah, right, and not being willing to like compromise.
not compromise. That thumb is down, so there's no compromising whatsoever with that, thumb there.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Now, here's an example of a super curved index finger. Wow, that one is so curved.
Yeah.
This is the example of a finger that we would say shows self sabotage.
Mhm.
So you've heard the idiom shooting yourself in the foot. We talked earlier about the trigger finger, pulling the trigger on your goals. This one, think about all those cartoons
Yeah.
where the barrel of the gun goes around like this,
Woo.
right? I'm thinking of Bugs Bunny
Yes,
for some
exactly.
reason. I don't know.
Elmer Fudd.
Elmer Fudd, right,
Yeah.
right. You know, in his Western outfit instead.
Mhm.
Where that it just goes and you shoot yourself in the foot. So that's kind of what we call this level of curvature.
Yeah.
And so, it's a challenge around trying to get those goals met.
Mhm.
All right. Now we have
You you get in the way of yourself.
get in the way of yourself. Yes.
Yeah.
Get in your own way. And sometimes this can be done, unconsciously,
Mhm.
somewhat on purpose.
Mhm.
Um, because if that fear of success,
Success.
right? What if I actually get there? What if I
Right.
actually do it?
Yeah.
And then
I
what?
don't wanna fail because that would make me have to rethink my things,
Right.
and then I
So,
might be successful.
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Then what?
Yeah.
All right, so this hand is kind of interesting because I think that finger looks like it's fallen off the hand.
It's almost running away from everything. Ah!
Right, it's just toppling over. And there are other markers in this hand that show a lot of potential.
Mhm.
And but none of the fingers are actually well seated in the hand. And so fingers are how you get your energy up and out into the world. This is how we interact. In fact, studies show that we get more information to our brain through our hands and fingers than through our eyes and ears combined. So if there's a problem where the energy is coming through the fingers and it's not connected, it's a disconnect literally to your
Disconnect.
brain.
Mhm. It's not getting there.
Right,
It's not
right.
getting from here out to the world.
It's short circuiting.
Mhm.
So here you have this Jupiter finger toppling over. Actually, all three of those main fingers, the three center fingers, seem to be kind of toppling over.
Right.
But Jupiter in particular, because it's on the edge, and when you think about if you have a building and you dig out the foundation, it's going to go, or a fence,
Yeah.
right?
Just
It's
right on over.
just gonna fall on over. It doesn't have anything to hold it up. So this finger is, to me, it feels like there's been so much difficult, and it's too bad because it's kind of straight actually.
I was gonna say it's actually long. If it's straightened up, it would really be a long
Right,
finger.
right.
Mhm.
So I
Finger.
want to say that this person, maybe they had a lot of ambition, but they have tried for so long and have not found what's in the way that they may be giving up. It feels
Yeah.
like, what's the use?
Yeah. I've tried this thing so many times, beating your head against the wall. Is that sanity or insanity?
Right, right. Now, these are not the only variations you can find in your index finger, but these are some of the more common ones and some of the ones that are kind of easiest for you to look for in yourself or in your friends or your family members. But there's other things that might show up, like the tip of the finger being twisted or shrunken. Um, and that can show, we were talking about this before we came live. That can show that maybe you're had to compromise your ideals.
Mhm.
So it's hard to show that in a print, but we're going to show you a photo shortly where we can see that. So let's look at, we showed you early on that nice picture of Castro where with that
With his
finger,
little finger.
oh my God, that crazy finger he had
That
sticking
was
out.
Insane.
Insane. So let's talk about the role that index finger plays in leadership and politics. You see, as I mentioned earlier, that gesture of the pointing, the putting the finger up in the air, when someone's trying to make a point when they're giving a speech, where they wag their finger at you when they're telling you you're wrong.
Hmm.
So let's look at a few examples in real life. How about that? Look who has a curved Jupiter finger. This is our current president in the United States here. Curved Jupiter.
Do you think it's long? If it wasn't so
No,
curved,
actually,
it's average.
I think actually what I think is his middle finger is short.
Oh, okay.
Because
Yeah, that does look really short.
yeah, because the two fingers, the index finger and the ring finger, are about the same height, I think.
Hmm.
So I think the middle finger is short, which is a whole nother topic we can
Right.
get into
Later.
later. That's for another video. But it's definitely not straight. So power struggles
Hmm.
that may have caused it to feel like this just has to go around. Too many compromises over the years. Actually, he's been known as a great in his years when he was a
Negotiator.
senator, he would bring a lot of people together who had opposing views, and he actually prides himself on that. But it's very possible that over the years he's had to work on a lot of deals where he wasn't satisfied with getting the results
That's
or the
called,
goals.
yeah, that's called peace at all costs.
Yes,
Peace.
that's
I want the peace, no matter what it costs. We're going to have peace.
right.
Hmm.
Right.
I see that in his. That was the first thing I thought of when I saw his hand.
That's great. That is a
Mhm.
great way of looking at it. I love that. I love
Mhm.
that. So let's look at some others because I found some really juicy ones when I
Some
was
of them are not that.
no,
Not at all.
no. So here are a bunch of other figures that you may be familiar with. So what's really interesting to me is we have former President Obama, we have Senator John McCain, we have um, Martin Luther King Jr., all with short index fingers, short power fingers. So, what did we say earlier about short power fingers? We said that they're often not ambitious. They're not driven towards leadership. It's not necessarily the person who wanted to be there, but all
Mhm.
three of them have something different uh, that may have led them to becoming someone who ended up in a leadership role on stage. And that's their long ring fingers, which is, again, for another video, which,
Right. Okay.
I'd love to talk about ring fingers. Um,
Days and days.
Oh yeah, there's so much we could talk about there. But the ring finger, just for those of you who don't know anything about fingers, is the finger of showing up on stage, being comfortable in the limelight. When you have a long ring finger, that is someone who can really show up and be comfortable in front of other people. Now, all three of those people were known to be comfortable in that place, and so it's also possible that that's how they ended up doing being called into leadership.
Mhm.
All three of them had to overcome early life challenges. I don't have to tell the story of Martin Luther King Jr. In fact, aren't we? Didn't we just celebrate
Yes, we did. This
Martin Luther
last
King?
Monday. Mhm.
Yes. So it's kind of fitting that he ended
Yeah.
up in our little slideshow here. And we know about John McCain having been a prisoner of war.
Mhm.
And think about it, when you go into the military, what you're doing is taking orders. You're for a long, long time. You're not necessarily, it takes you a while. If
Yeah.
you are inclined toward leadership, it takes a while. For a long time, you have to learn how to take orders.
Mhm.
But he ended up being a prisoner of war for a really long time, and it's very possible that that was what later drove him to overcome that short finger, not necessarily thinking that's where he might have ended up, and taking on that role.
Mhm.
Now we also have here, with a short index finger, Kim Jong Il. This is not the current leader of North Korea. This was his father. And I picked this image because not only his finger short, it's kind of twisted. It kind of twists towards his thumb. Didn't you notice that earlier?
Yes, twisted toward the thumb.
And look how red his palms are in so
Mhm.
many spots. And
Yeah.
red, especially when it's that red, is associated with anger.
Anger.
Anger. Red is the color of rage.
Hmm.
So we've got the short finger. So one thing we have not mentioned about short index fingers, it can sometimes be what we would say with if it's short and twisted. You want to say what it's called?
The thumb?
Yeah.
The bully? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Or
the
no?
bully
The bully.
or Napoleon
Or the
complex.
Napoleon. Yes, one of the two. I'm
Right.
not getting enough respect. You better respect me, or I will make your life hell.
Right. When you think about all that redness in his palm.
And especially that top finger, his
Right.
pointer finger, and
Right.
that thumb. They both have very
Right.
red tops.
Right. Our technology doesn't let me like zoom in for you. So I'm hoping that you can do that yourself if you're watching this, because it's really worth taking a good look at that.
Yeah.
Upper right-hand corner, Donald Rumsfeld. This image was taken during the Bush administration when there was a lot of controversy over whether it was true about the weapons of mass destruction. Do you remember that?
Oh yes, yes.
You know, we got into the war in Afghanistan because they were talking about how they had weapons of mass destruction, and it turned out later that that was not exactly true. I am more concerned with leaders who have curved fingers than ones who have short ones.
Right.
And so he has a curved finger. And if you look at his other hand, his right hand, he has a Band-Aid on the tip of that finger. And when I pulled this image out off the internet back when I was blogging a lot about politics and hand reading. And that image grabbed my attention right away because he had on one hand a curved finger and on the other the Band-Aid. So an injury to that finger, to the zone that has to do with principles.
Right.
Right?
What are you hiding under that Band-Aid, sir?
Right, exactly.
It's a cover-up. I vaguely remember a lot of politicians in that era had a lot of Band-Aids on their hands at that time. I do.
Yes,
Probably from you, Leslie.
It could be, because I kept finding them on the internet. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I had when what was her name when she
Palin.
Palin, yes. There was
Yes.
I have
Three or something.
Big
Oh yeah,
giant.
on the right here in the whole palm.
Right, her whole palm covered in a big
Disgusting.
bandage. Yes. Yep, I was looking at that when I was putting this slideshow together.
That's so funny.
In my folder of famous hands.
Right.
And then of course in the bottom corner there we have Mr. Castro again, and this is a different view of his hands, and I like this one because you can really see that the tips of both his index finger and his middle finger, which is the finger of integrity,
Right.
among other things. It's not just integrity. There's a lot of other things it's associated with, but that's one of them. Both of them curve back towards the back of his palm, his hand.
Yeah. Towards
so they
him.
are, yes, so they're torqued. They are not, so it's like when you think about somebody putting their hands out to you, they're showing you who they really are. Right? When people are when they're hiding something, they often hide their hands.
Oh, yes,
if you
they do.
study the psychology of gesture, that is a very common thing.
Yep.
So they often will hide their hands when they're hiding something. So when someone's putting their hands out to you, then you can really see a lot about them. In fact, we should be doing a video on gesture.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah. Yes. So look for that. Look for that. So when the hands start, the fingers either at the base start to lean back or the tips lean back or something, there's something that they don't want you to see. And in this particular case, that's the ideals zone and the integrity zone. So very, very interesting stuff. about power, power fingers,
The
and our
responsibility.
politicians. And I just want to,
Responsibility. Mhm.
I know that you and I have both talked about how when we decided to do this video on Jupiter and power, how we you mentioned that, yep, a lot of problems with politicians and
And
Jupiter.
Jupiters. Yes.
So this is why we were inspired to bring you this little slideshow. So now, when you're watching those speeches
Yeah,
on
exactly.
television, deciding who to vote for, take a look at the condition of that finger.
That finger's in particular and the thumb,
Right, and the thumb.
because they're gonna be
Yep,
doing stuff for you.
that's right. That's right.
Are they
Okay,
gonna work for you? That's the thing. That's the question that you wanna see in those hands. Are they working for
exactly.
me? They're not working for me.
Right. So, just we hope you enjoyed this little presentation on Jupiter and power. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below our YouTube slide. You can join our Facebook group again and ask us questions there. We are happy to answer them and talk to you about anything related to hands, whether it's about Jupiter or something else. And we hope to see you here next time.
We also have some really great slides on the hands and things that we're talking about in the Hand Readers Guild forum.
Yes, we do. We have a
So if
lot of diagrams. A
so if
lot of
you're
diagrams.
wondering about that Jupiter finger and what we're talking about, the middle and upper and lower zones, we have stuff on that on
Right,
our right there.
right. And thumbs and all kinds of other
And
good
thumbs
things.
and the Saturn finger, which is
Yeah.
so fun.
Yeah, yeah, lots and lots of goodies in there.
Yes.
So please join our group. It's it's really just a subject near and dear to our hearts, and we're happy to share what we know. All right, we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.